Now we are ready to talk about ARIES. To understand how it works, we need to know what happens when a transaction performs its actions. And likewise, what happens when the buffer pool manager requests for a page or writes back dirty data pages to the disk. The main points to remember in ARIES is that a transaction is considered to be committed if its commit record shows up in the log on the disk. Otherwise, it is considered to be incomplete with all of its actions to be undone during recovery. So, when a transaction starts, we write the start record to the log. Subsequently, we update the transactions table to add a new entry corresponding to the new transaction. For example, suppose transaction 105 starts. We write a new record to the log. Then we add a new entry to the transactions table with last LSN set to be null. The buffer pool and dirty table pages remain unchanged during this process. Then, when the transaction performs an update, we need to update the various fields based on their definitions, as shown here on the slide. As an example, if transaction 100 writes the number 10 in page 7, we insert a new update log record in the log. The entry gets a new LSN, 102 in this case, as shown here in red. Updates to all other fields are performed similarly, as shown here on the slide. Now, what happens when we try to write dirty data pages back to the disk? Remember that ARIES uses write-ahead logging. Therefore, we must first flush the log records to the disk before actually writing out the dirty data pages. So, for example, if our buffer pool manager wants to write out page number 7, which is dirty in this case, we need to first flush the log corresponding and up to the last LSN that made that particular page dirty, in this case 101. Then we write the dirty page to the disk and we remove both page 7 from the dirty pages table and the buffer pool itself. So after that, the buffer pool and the page table will look like this. What happens then when the buffer pool manager wants to insert a new page into the buffer pool? Well, we first create a new entry for that page, and in the dirty pages table, we set rec LSN to be null. So, for example, if the buffer pool manager wants to load page number 2 into memory, we first create a new entry for that page in the dirty pages table, with rec LSN set to null since no one has written to that page yet. And then we bring in the page into the buffer pool. The transactions table and the log itself remain unchanged during this process.